Hey there, welcome back to Care Anywhere. If you're connected to the world of nursing in any way, you're probably familiar with the Daisy Foundation and the prestigious recognition they give to nurses in partnership with their healthcare employers. Nurses who receive a Daisy Award and this honor have been nominated either by a patient's family, or a colleague. Receiving a Daisy Award has become a significant career highlight for nurses who receive them. I sat down today with Bonnie Barnes, a co-founder of Daisy Foundation, and Deb Zimmermann, who is their CEO. We talk about how Daisy got started and unpack the power of recognition to impact career resilience, longevity, and opportunity. Don't go anywhere. This episode starts right now. In this podcast, we're setting the table for some powerful discussions with nurses, allied health professionals, regulators, tech innovators, and other thought leaders across the globe. Welcome to Care Anywhere, the Global Health Workforce Podcast, brought to you by True Merit. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Care Anywhere. I'm host Lea Sims with True Merit. I am joined today by Deb Zimmermann and Bonnie Barnes with Daisy Foundation. And I'm so excited to have them on the podcast today so that we can talk about all the great work that Daisy Foundation has done and is doing to support nurses and nurse recognition around the world. Deb and Bonnie, welcome. So glad to have you.
Thank you. We're thrilled to be here.
Wonderful. So let's start with introductions. Deb, if you want to go first, and then Bonnie, whichever way you want to do that, we'd love for you to share with our audience a little bit about yourself, some background, and then we'll jump in.
Sure. I'm Deb Zimmermann. I am a nurse. I have the privilege of serving as the CEO of the Daisy Foundation. I had the privilege of serving as a chief nursing officer where the team brought the Daisy Award to the organization when I was a new CNO, and from there I was able to join the board of directors, and 4 years ago the Barnes family asked if I would come on board as the CEO, and it has been the absolute privilege of my life.
Bonnie, jump in.
I'm Bonnie Barnes, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Daisy Foundation. And I know that my 30 years in advertising and marketing has no relevance to what I do today, but for the last 26 years, really dedicated my life, along with my husband's, to elevating, celebrating, honoring extraordinary, compassionate care. And that's what I get to do.
Beautiful. So, Bonnie, that's a great segue into telling our audience, honestly, if there's anyone even closely connected to nursing, they've heard of Daisy Foundation and may be familiar with your story, but there are probably a lot of international listeners who might not know how you got started and what really drove that decision. So let's start with that story, Bonnie.
Well, thank you, Leah. I obviously love talking about our why, and it's now dating back, as I said, 26 years ago, when my stepson Patrick was hospitalized for 8 weeks with the autoimmune disease ITP. And by the way, often I'm asked, well, why did you name this work Daisy? It stands for Diseases Attacking the Immune System, because it keeps us rooted in our experience with Patrick in the hospital. Well, my husband, Mark, and I got to spend those 8 weeks in the hospital with him pretty much day and night, and saw for the first time in our young lives what nurses do every day. And when Patrick died, we realized that our hearts were filled with gratitude, not only for the clinical excellence that they showed with every interaction that we had, but especially for their kindness and their compassion and the sensitivity they had to all of us in our family as we went through these worst weeks of our lives. And we just had to find a way to say thank you. So we created the Daisy Award to give other patients and families a way to share their stories of extraordinary, compassionate care, and to give nurses a way to feel the feedback, the emotional expressions of gratitude that patients have for them, and to understand that they truly, truly are making a difference. I will tell you, Leah, when we started this program back in 1999, we thought if we could say thank you to nurses in 5 or 10 hospitals, we would feel better and go back to doing what we were doing before Patrick got sick. But fast forward 26 years later, there are now just about 7,700 healthcare facilities and nursing schools in 45 countries that have our program.
Can we just pause and celebrate that impact? Those are some incredible numbers. I have to say, I'm sure we all share just the joy and this celebration of such great work, and it's starting from such a personal place. And I'm a big believer that things that start with a personal story tend to build a life around that story so well. And I know that's really been the underpinning of the process. We'll talk about recognition. Those numbers to me really speak to how timely and important this initiative was then and still continues to be in terms of recognition for nurses. And we'll jump into that in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about the process in case people don't know exactly how that works and rolls out. So how does that recognition process work? How does a nurse get nominated for and receive a DAISY Award recognition from the foundation?
Well, we partner with healthcare organizations wherever nurses practice, obviously in hospitals, but in all kinds of other facilities where nurses are employed, including corporations, prisons, military hospitals, surgery centers, you name it, we're there. And the awards are actually coming from those organizations. We only facilitate and help those organizations understand how to deliver meaningful recognition, but they establish their own criteria that fit their mission and values and ways of speaking about nursing excellence and compassionate care. And then they collect the nominations using all the tools we provide. And we have a robust resource center of really wonderful tools for them to run their programs with. But they then collect nominations, they blind those nominations, and they choose a nurse each month, each quarter, sometimes twice a month, depending on the size of the staff that's going to be honored. And not only do we urge them to have that kind of consistent, ongoing recognition throughout the year, but also every nurse who receives a nomination from a patient, a family member, or a coworker is also celebrated. They get a copy of the nomination, they get a little daisy pin to remind them of the difference they've made for a patient or a family member.
That's so powerful. Deb, what did that mean for you? What does it mean first of all, for these hospitals and providers and organizations? I have to say, I pay attention now when I'm in a hospital and I see a sign that talks about that they're a proud partner with DAISY or a proud supporter, and that's they've adopted that recognition program, and they're always proud to display it. I see it in almost every hospital I go in. So, Deb, I'm curious your thoughts on that and why it's important to the health provider or the employer of the nurse that's doing that.
Well, virtually all nurses chose the profession because they want to make a difference in the lives and the health of individuals, and they want to lift up the health of the communities they serve. So when a patient expresses gratitude to an individual nurse for the care that they rendered, for a new nurse, it validates they've chosen the right profession. For a seasoned nurse, it reminds them of their purpose, and it helps them and them see the difference that they're still making, and prevents sometimes a little cynicism that can develop over time. What we found is that it lasts beyond the moment. It's not like giving candy or Employee of the Year. To be able to receive recognition from those patients and families, it has an impact that lasts beyond the moment. And what researchers have found is that it actually creates a reserve, what they call compassion satisfaction, that nurses can tap into when they're having a difficult and a challenging day. So meaningful recognition from patients and families and colleagues, it's so important.
Absolutely. Bonnie, thoughts on why it's important for the employer? How important it is for these hospital health system providers to get on board? What does it do for them?
Well, first of all, the leaders who get to participate in DAISY celebrations are reminded why they do what they do. I love when a chief financial officer comes to a DAISY celebration. It's away from his office and the numbers and the money and the spreadsheets and all of the pressure, and comes and really sees what nurses are doing. Here's the story of the difference and the impact a nurse has had on a patient or family member. So engaging nursing or healthcare leadership in the recognition of their teams is uplifting to them and refuels them and their own compassion satisfaction. But additionally, there's a huge body of research that Deb and I could talk to you about all day that is revealing the impact of meaningful recognition on the healthy work environment, on nurse engagement, on compassion fatigue, compassion satisfaction, and even on patients and families who get to write those nominations and say thank you to their nurses.
I would think from the hospital or employer perspective too, it's a way for them to say publicly, we don't just care for our patients, we care for our nurses, we care for the people, everyone under our roof who is providing care and advancing our mission as an organization. I would think from the healthcare organization side, that's a pretty powerful statement as well. And it's them stepping up to the plate and saying, this isn't just lip service to our employees, but we really do care. That's a great partnership. You both touched on the need for recognition and called out, some of the downstream impact and outcomes that can drive. Why is it so important in this profession particularly? And Deb, we've talked about this in a number of events in the last year. Why nurse recognition is critical to workforce development and to some of the pressures and challenges that nurses uniquely face within that profession. I'd love for you to touch on how recognition plays a role in their career pathing and not just job satisfaction or burnout. Some of those things. There are other reasons why it's critical timing for nurses, I think.
We first began to really understand how important meaningful recognition was back in probably 2005 when the American Association of Critical Care Nurses identified meaningful recognition as truly important for a healthy work environment. And what we as nurses did not necessarily really understand it or believe it. And what we have found through research is that it's so important for nurses to know that their work has meaning, that their work is valued, and that leadership recognizes that the attributes that are most important to patients and families are that human connection. So the DAISY Award formalizes all of that and delivers to the nurse that their work has meaning, that their work has value, and that the leaders recognize the difference that they make. So it has a long-term impact on teamwork. It has a long-term impact on careers. And in fact, there was just a German study that came out just a little while ago that studied nurses who were at the bedside for 30 years or more. And what they found is that those nurses felt valued, they were recognized, and their work, in their opinion, really had meaning, so that they found their joy. They were able to fulfill the purpose for which they went into their profession. So the impact is significant, and the research suggests that meaningful recognition can help build a culture of gratitude. It impacts teamwork, retention, clinical outcomes, and engagement from both the profession as well as those that they serve.
And you're talking about people, nurses potentially being at the bedside. I mean, many nurses move into other careers, and I could talk about how many career options are open to nurses now that weren't, 15 years ago or even 10 years ago. So many opportunities. But if you're at the bedside that long, it's a challenging role. My husband's a paramedic, firefighter paramedic. He's a first responder. That's an everyday high pressure role. Recognition, especially from your patients, the people who you're caring for, I think is really great. You mentioned the study, and to keep a nurse fulfilled, still loving their career at the bedside 30 years down the road, recognition is really critical. You would think it's a small thing, but it's actually a really big thing to keeping that happening. So I love that the studies are showing that. One of the things that you touched on earlier, both of you, was that in many cases, these are patient-generated nominations for these DAISY Awards. How does that factor in compared to employer recognition? We all love employer recognition. Our HR departments have all kinds of things set up for that, but there's something really special and meaningful for that recognition to come from the patients that you care for. Can you touch on, I know that was from the very beginning, Bonnie, a big part of this process. What does that mean to the nurse, and why is it so important for them to receive that from a patient?
It's really what Deb has been talking about, that it's the reason why nurses become nurses is to take care of people. So when they know they've actually achieved that through a heartfelt, emotional statement of gratitude and is sharing a story of what exactly they did, it's incredibly uplifting. By the way, there's a parallel here I find very interesting. DAISY honors nurses wherever they practice and wherever they are in their careers. So we have awards for nurse leaders, for example, where their teams are nominating them. And I find reading those nominations almost as emotional and powerful when a group of nurses, bedside nurses, clinicians, are talking about their nurse manager who took that through a difficult situation. It reads just like a patient talking about their clinician, their nurse that took care of them when they were vulnerable and sick.
It does, because they're receiving that great service and care from their manager. To me, it's very much like a student coming back and saying, this was the best teacher I ever had. It changed my life to have, this teacher in 4th grade or 12th grade or whatever. It's very similar, I think, nursing and teaching in that sense, that you live almost more for your patients or your students than any upward recognition could possibly give you. It's unique that way.
And if I may, we have an award for students as well, and an award for nurse educators. And once again, it's students talking about their faculty or their educator or instructor in a clinical setting that are just incredibly powerful statements.
That's great. So let's talk about some examples. Can you maybe share with our audience an example of a DAISY Award winner and the process for how they were identified and what that looked like?
Well, as I mentioned, they are chosen by a committee in their own organization according to criteria that organization has set up. And those nominations are blinded. So they're based on the criteria. There are a group of nurses and often others, members of a patient faculty, a patient family advisory council, or chaplains, or patient experience people, or HR. I mean, a lot of people can be on the committee that chooses. And they usually have pretty strict scoring. Sometimes we joke around about this, though. They put a Kleenex box in the middle of the table and they figure out which one needs the story and get them both Kleenex. So it varies about how exactly they choose them, but they're all based on compassionate care. And then the statements of excellence and strategy, frankly, that is important to that organization. We have on our website, I don't know, about 160,000 of our nearly 300,000 honorees have been registered with us. And trying to choose among these stories is like trying to choose among my children, right? It's very hard. But I want to give you one great example that we just got a couple of days ago. And this is a story it's about a nurse named Gina. She had a patient who was incredibly sick in the hospital for the first time. But at the same time, this patient who spoke about Gina with great affection and admiration for how she was caring for her. The problem this patient had was she had a really close friend in that hospital dying in inpatient hospice. And she asked Gina, is there any way I could go up and see him, knowing that there were probably all kinds of rules against her doing that? And Gina said, well, let me take a look. Let me see what I can do. And sure enough, a while later, Gina came in with a wheelchair and she brought this patient to see her dying friend who passed away later that day. But here's what she wrote that really gave me chills. This patient said, the memory of my illness will fade, but I will always carry the memory of that last moment with my friend of 35 years. Gina gave me that.
That's a moment she wouldn't have had. Such an important moment. Yeah. And having somebody advocate for you and find the way to find the way to make that happen is so powerful. let's talk about the impact on career. What is what impact does a Daisy Award have on nurse career longevity? I think we talked about that a little bit around, how it supports that 30-year lifespan of a career, but also on downstream opportunities. What are you hearing from nurses who um, have received Daisy recognition and then come back and say, these are some of the doors that opened for me, or it shifted something in my own perception of my career that should maybe change the trajectory of how I was thinking about opportunity.
I have two examples. One is an example of a nurse who, post-COVID, was tired and fatigued, had been in the profession about 20 years, and she was really thinking it was time for her to retire. And then she was the recipient of a Daisy Award. Her patient recognized her. And what she wrote in social media was, maybe I have a few more years left. It renewed her soul and filled her cup. And I've kept in touch with this nurse, and she continues to practice today in Northern Virginia. I also spoke to a faculty member who has received multi-million-dollar grants for her research. And she said the most significant award that she received was the Daisy Award. And it came from one of her students. And she said she was humbled so much more from that award than any other award that she has received. And because it helped her understand that she really is a good mentor. And it gave her confidence about the profession that she is mentoring as they continue to grow as researchers.
Bonnie, could you ever predicted the power of that in the beginning, what this was going to do for nurses? Because just listening to both of those examples, Deb, my heart is so stirred because I think about, um, you know, people think it's titles and it's money and it's all of these things that are going to fill that cup or make you want to keep going in your career. And this is something so much more powerful than that. I can't imagine that in the beginning you thought it would go here, but what a testimony to the work you've done.
5 or 10 hospitals and we would be done. Let me tell you a report that we just got a TikTok video of a nurse who has showed us her ID badge on her in the video, and she had 6 little Daisy nominee pins on it. Remember this, Deb? We just got this. And she talked about receiving a Daisy nomination was like winning the Super Bowl. And she went on and on about what these pins mean. And her message was to the public to say, let us know that we're doing what we're here to do. Don't hold back your gratitude. And I just love that. No, we didn't have any idea this was going to have a business plan. We had no vision. We were, Mark and I, a couple that needed to say thank you. And we needed to deal with the loss of our beloved Patrick and figure out how to keep his spirit alive in a positive way. It was as simple as that. We had no clue. But it's been leaders like Deb who have taken us by the hand, welcomed us into this profession with love and helped us understand the strategic benefit that we never would have seen were it not for nursing leaders who really lifted us and keep us going every day.
Well, it was birthed in gratitude, so it's no surprise that continues to be the underpinning spirit of everything that you're doing. I'd love to turn for a minute to talk about the impact of Daisy internationally. The State of the World's Nursing Report last year, which we talked a little bit at ICN about, Deb, acknowledged that recognition is going to be a critical part of elevating and pulling up the nursing workforce globally. There are many places around the world that don't have the opportunity for this kind of recognition. They don't have many pathways for opportunity and career pathing and mobility. And so recognition there is even more critical. And I think people are just starting to wake up to how important that is. I know you guys have a strong reach internationally, and that's continuing to grow. I'd love to know how you've expanded your program internationally, how that's working, and some examples you can give around maybe some things you're doing outside the U.S.
Well, let me just start and then I'm going to turn it over to Deb because, how it started, we had no intention of being an international organization. In fact, we had a board member at one point many years ago. Deb, you never got to meet her. She passed away before you joined us. But I remember calling her one day and said, "Well, Lynn, what do you think about international?" And she said, "Don't do it. You have enough to do here. Not going to, don't bother." But obviously it's happened. And it's happened because at the Magnet Conference in 2009, where we were guests of ANCC, we had international organizations coming to us to say, "What is this?" We had a big banner out that said, "Honor your nurses," And so, what is this? And so, through our introductions at the Magnet Conference, we met chief nursing officers from many different countries who were very intrigued. And slowly, it's been a slow uptake, have really adopted the understanding and absorbed the understanding of what meaningful recognition can mean for them. Deb, let me turn this back to you.
Yes. It is it is amazing to see how Bonnie and Mark, I call them, and they know this, the Taylor Swifts of our profession, because when they travel internationally and they enter a country that had never been exposed to meaningful recognition, and the impact that it's had is overwhelming. They really are treated like rock stars, and deservedly so. What we see is the exact same impact no matter where we go internationally, whether it be Africa, Saudi Arabia, United Kingdom, Ireland, no matter where we are. The impact of receiving feedback from patients, families, and colleagues is exactly the same. There is joy, surprise, and the research is consistent that it is that tie to purpose and reinforces that meaning and really the joy of being a caregiver. So it is unbelievable that there is one profession. And one nurse in Saudi Arabia said to me that there is only one language in nursing. And I really think of Daisy, that there is meaningful recognition has unified globally the profession of nursing, and often is a starting point for dialogue and for to be able to discuss challenges in healthcare and how nurses can step up and step out and really have a voice at the table, because around the globe, nurses have a good perspective of the healthcare needs of the communities that they serve. So it's really been a very profound impact that the Barnes family have had on nursing as a profession.
Congratulations, Bonnie, for something that started small and you had a small idea about has become globally impactful to such a degree that someone would say you're the Taylor Swift of what you're doing, which is such a great way of describing that. But it's certainly noteworthy for sure. I would say we're in a time right now, just geopolitically, where this is critical, and that what you're doing extends beyond just nursing or even healthcare, because it's focusing on what's common, what unites nurses around the globe is a common passion for care and respect of their patients. And when I was at ICN last year, Deb, when we were there, that was my first ICN conference. And I was awestruck by the nursing delegations that were the opening night where they come across the stage carrying their banners. And I thought, wow, what a beautiful unifying moment to say, here we all are, we represent our respective nations, but we're all connected to the same goal and to the same heartbeat when it comes to why we do what we do. And certainly there's probably never been a time more critical than right now for that solidarity and care and regard across borders for each other. So that this is, to me, an example of something that started in one vein and now has become even beyond its original intent. I think having a huge impact. I love hearing that. for sure.
Well, it's the human connection that's fundamental to all of us around the world. And that's what Daisy really focuses on is elevating, celebrating, reminding people of what that human connection feels like. And at a time when technology is obviously taking off, technology will never provide the human connection that nurses provide. And they do it in an instant, and they do it without thinking. And it's what we as patients and families need so desperately from them.
Are we seeing policy change at the at the health provider level to support recognition programs in a way that maybe didn't exist before Daisy Foundation came along?
My answer to that is yes. What we are seeing is science that supports meaningful recognition. We are understanding that a healthy work environment creates a healthy workforce that is able to lift up the health of the communities that they serve. It is good business to ensure a thriving, vibrant nursing workforce. And what we're seeing is that the profession globally is looking at what is entailed in a healthy work environment and working diligently to really put those practices in place. So is it a policy per se? I'm not sure. It's more of a strategy to really ensure the health and wellness on the global community.
It's great. Bonnie, your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree. It has become a strategic imperative. It's in the strategies of every nursing organization and that we partner with that recognition is paramount. And, I got to tell you, it didn't start out like this in 1999. We were persistent in cold calling hospitals and offering this program really as a gift at the time. We had one hospital, University of Washington Medical Center, that had taken care of Patrick. They had a brilliant chief nursing officer. Grieving couple comes in to see her. I think she felt sorry for us. So she said, yes, let's try this. But after that, it was a very slow build. And it's taken time. It's taken the healthy work environment research that Deb just alluded to. It's taken organizations like the American Organization for Nursing Leadership to showcase what we were doing and see in it the strategic value to help to spread the word. And it's helped, people like ANCC and Magnet who announced they wanted Daisy in every Magnet organization and everyone, on the journey to Magnet. So all of that support has been what's helped drive this expansion. Nothing that we've done other than
That's a powerful connection you just mentioned there with ANCC and
very, very proud
process to tie
between them and
tuition to it. Yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
Wonderful. It's great, really great to have good partners along the way to support that. So we're closing in on the end of our time here. I would love to let people know how to find out more about Daisy, where they can go to maybe read some of the stories of your Daisy Award winners. You want to share how they can find you and get to you. That would be great.
Of course, we have a website, daisyfoundation.org. Right on the homepage, there's two things you can do. One, you can nominate a nurse. We have a search engine for every one of our 7,700 partners that will take you to their nomination form that goes straight to that organization. So please, to anyone listening, if you've had a great experience with a nurse, say thank you. Tell them what they did that uplifted you, and you will uplift them. And the second thing is that you can get tons of information and read about the stories of extraordinary care that Daisy nurses provide every day. We feature 3 of them on the homepage, and then there are links to the 160,000 others. So if ever you're having a not such a great day and you want to be reminded of what nurses are all about and the humanity that nurses provide in their care, just click on any one of them and you'll find a great story.
Well, I have 2 close family members who have both received Daisy Awards, and I can tell you that when that happened, it was a huge deal for them. A really big deal in their hospitals, everyone that gathers around to be part of that process. And then, Facebook posts and Instagram posts and lots of kudos through social. So it's certainly becoming more visible. People who, aren't nurses are more aware now of how important that program is and the recognition for people that receive them. So thank you for the great work on behalf of everybody who is a nurse, loves a nurse, or has been cared for by a nurse, which is pretty much everybody. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Deb, I don't know if you have some final thoughts before we go, but thank you so much for being here and sharing your passion and insights as well.
Oh, thank you for ensuring that everyone knows about meaningful recognition and how important it is for the health and wellness of our world. So thank you, Lea, for inviting us to join you today.
Oh, it's great to have you here. I love the work that True Merit and Daisy are doing. I should put a little plug in for our Daisy Award for Ethical International Recruitment. I think we're going through the selection process now. We will be announcing the honorees for that award here in the next few weeks. I look forward to seeing you guys in New York when we give those out to the great nurses who are working to support the recruitment of international workforce candidates. And we're excited to partner with you guys on that. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you sharing your story and experience with us. It was great to have you.
Thank you, Lea. We really appreciate your inviting us.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's the end of our episode. We'll see you next time on Care Anywhere. That's it for this episode of Care Anywhere. Thanks for joining us. We hope you'll tune in for future episodes where we will continue these powerful discussions about our global health workforce. If you missed any episodes, you can find them at truemerit.org/podcast or by subscribing to our channel on your favorite podcast platform. Just look for our podcast logo or search for Care Anywhere to find us. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.